When my little brother slid the check across the table to me at my mom's birthday dinner, my hand went to my wallet on autopilot. It was the same motion I'd done 100 times before. Tip, rent, surprise bill. I'll pay you back, I promise. But this time, my fingers stopped halfway. We were at a chain restaurant in Houston, nothing fancy. But my mom had ordered dessert for the whole table and extra appetizers because it's a special night. There were 8 of us: my mom, my little brother Tyler, my younger sister Lindsay and her 2 kids, my aunt and uncle, and me. The server dropped the leather folder at the center of the table and, without even looking at the total, Tyler flipped it open, glanced at it, and slid it toward me like it had my name printed on it. "Here you go, Rach," he said, already reaching for his phone. "Put it on your card? I'll Venmo you later." Everyone just kept talking. My mom laughed at something Lindsay said. My aunt was scrolling through pictures of the grandkids. The kids were fighting over the last mozzarella stick. Not a single person even hesitated. Of course Rachel will pay. I stared at the bill. $263.47. I mentally added the tip, plus the fact that I'd already paid the restaurant deposit for Mom's cake, plus the Amazon decorations I'd put on my credit card, plus the gas to pick everyone up. I heard myself say the usual words, automatic and hollow. "Yeah, sure, I got it." But my hand didn't move. And in that second, my fingers hovering over my worn-out wallet, my heart pounding in my ears, I had the ugliest, clearest thought I've ever had about my own family. They don't see me as a daughter or a sister. They see me as a walking emergency fund, the responsible one, the one who made it, the one who will always figure it out. Something in me snapped, quietly, like a rubber band that had been stretched too far for too many years. I paid the bill that night, but that was the last time I was going to play that role. I just didn't know, yet, how much my entire life was about to change because of that tiny pause over my wallet. My name is Rachel Miller. I'm 34, I live in Houston, Texas, and for most of my life, my entire personality could be summed up in one sentence. Rachel will figure it out. We grew up working class on the far edge of the city. My dad left when I was 12, and he took his paycheck and his name off the lease with him. That left my mom, 3 kids, and a whole lot of unpaid bills. I was the oldest. I watched my mom sit at the kitchen table with a calculator and a stack of pink past-due envelopes, her shoulders shaking silently, while she tried to make $11.75 an hour at the grocery store stretch into rent, gas, and school clothes. That was the first time I saw that look on her face, the tight-lipped mix of fear and shame. It burned itself into my brain. So when I got my first job at 16 at a movie theater, I handed her my entire check. She tried to say no, but I saw that look, and I couldn't handle it. "It's fine, Mom," I said. "You can pay me back later." She never did, and I never asked her to. In our family, we didn't say "I love you" very often. We said, "I got it." We said, "Don't worry about it." We said, "I'll cover it this time." Fast forward. I was the first one to graduate high school, the first one to go to college, the first one to get a salaried job. I went to a state school on a patchwork of scholarships, student loans, and 3 part-time jobs. My mom mailed me $20 when she could, and I told everyone I was fine while I ate dollar store ramen and cried over my statistics textbook. Eventually, I got a job as a project manager at a healthcare software company in Houston. It wasn't glamorous, but it came with health insurance, a 401k, and an actual salary that hit my account on the same day every 2 weeks. In my family's eyes, that made me a millionaire. Tyler bounced from job to job. Warehouse, Uber, selling sneakers on Instagram. Always a hustle, never stability. Lindsay had her first baby at 21 and her second at 24, and the dads were, let's just say, intermittently present at best. So when the power bill was about to be shut off, Rach, can you spot me just this once? When Lindsay's car broke down and she needed $600 for a new alternator? Rach, if I can't drive, I can't get to work. The kids will lose daycare. When Mom's stress test turned into an overnight hospital stay and a mountain of deductibles? Rach, I'll pay you back when tax time comes. Somewhere along the way, just this once became the default. If you looked at my bank statement, you'd see it clearly. Zelle transfers, Cash App, surprise Target runs, for the kids. Uber rides I ordered for someone miles away from me at midnight. If you looked at my calendar, you'd see the other thing I gave them, time. I was the one who watched Lindsay's kids before school when she picked up extra shifts. I was the one who drove Mom to appointments because she hates driving on the freeway. I was the one who picked up Tyler at 2 a.m. when his car got repossessed, then helped him figure out a plan in my living room while I put coffee on. And on top of that, I was still working full-time. I was the one at the office who stayed late, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, the one who fixed the spreadsheet no one else wanted to touch. My boss, Mark, once said, half joking, "If I could clone you, Rachel, this place would actually run." It sounded like a compliment. What it really meant was, you will always be the one I give more work to because you won't say no. At home and at work, I was the same person. The shock absorber, the helper, the one who has it together. From the outside, I looked successful. Decent apartment, reliable car, nice clothes from outlet malls that I pretended were full price. On the inside, I was always one unexpected bill away from a panic attack, one family emergency away from complete burnout. But for a long time, I told myself this was normal. This is what good daughters do. This is what big sisters do. This is just being there for your family. It took years of tiny cuts before I realized how deep the wound really went. The slide from generous to being used didn't happen overnight. It started as a slow creep. One day, Mom called me while I was in a conference room, quietly eating a sandwich between Zoom calls. "Rach," she whispered, like she was telling me a state secret. "I just got the mortgage notice. I'm 2 months behind. They're talking about next steps. Can you help? Just until I get my tax refund." Mortgage. Not a light bill, not a pharmacy run. 2 full months of someone else's roof over their head. I stared at the spreadsheet on my laptop, at the little numbers in my own budget I'd just been trying to stretch. Yeah, I heard myself say. I'll figure something out. I transferred the money that night and skipped my own student loan payment. Then came Tyler's crisis. He had found this amazing opportunity, some sort of apprenticeship for HVAC work that required him to have his own truck and tools. The problem? His credit was already a disaster, and the dealership wanted a cosigner. We were at my kitchen table, a pile of printed loan documents between us. "Rach, this is my chance to finally get stable," he said, eyes wide, voice soft. "They said if someone with good credit cosigns, I can start next Monday. I'll make the payments. I swear. I just need your name." Every single cell in my body screamed no. I'd just finished paying off a store card and had finally gotten my credit score into the good range after years of clawing my way out of debt. I thought of my mom's face when we almost lost the apartment when I was 17. I thought of those pink envelopes. I thought of Tyler as a kid, sleeping on the couch in his Spider-Man pajamas. And then I did exactly what you think I did. I signed. "Thank you," he said, hugging me like I'd pulled him out of a burning building. "I won't let you down." Spoiler, he absolutely let me down. The first 3 months, he sent me screenshots of his payments. By month 5, the texts stopped. By month 7, I got the first phone call from the bank. "Ms. Miller, your payment is late." My payment. Tyler had ghosted the loan, and the debt collectors, and me. When I begged him to call them, he shrugged. "They're blowing it out of proportion," he said. "I'll catch up when I can. Relax." Relax. I was working 55-hour weeks, juggling 3 major software implementation projects, and getting calls about a truck I didn't drive for a job I didn't have that my brother had begged me to help him get. Then Lindsay's daycare closed. She called me sobbing in the parking lot. "Rach, they shut it down. Some licensing issue. I have nobody to watch the kids, and my boss already warned me about missing shifts. If I lose this job..." I'd already been picking up the kids once a week. Suddenly, it became every morning. My alarm shifted from 6 a.m. to 5 a.m. so I could drive across town, get 2 sleepy kids into my car, feed them cereal at my apartment, and then drop them at a different daycare before I logged into my 9 a.m. meeting. "The kids are so lucky to have you," people would tell me. Meanwhile, I was drinking 3 coffees a day and crying in my car at random stoplights, feeling like I was failing everyone, all the time. My boyfriend, Alex, tried to be supportive, at first, but after yet another date night canceled because Lindsay just really needed me, and another weekend I spent helping Mom sort through a stack of medical bills, he finally snapped. "I'm not competing with your family," he said, standing in my kitchen with his hands on his hips. "You are basically their third parent and their full-time ATM. And I'm just, what? The guy who gets whatever scraps of time are left?" "That's not fair," I protested. "They need me." "So do I," he said quietly. "But you don't seem to notice." He broke up with me 2 months later. We were sitting in his car outside my apartment, and he said, "You know I care about you, but I can't watch you burn yourself out for people who don't even say thank you. You won't set a single boundary with them, so I have to set one for myself." When he drove away, I told myself he just didn't understand. But late at night, alone in bed, I knew he was right. At work, the same pattern played out. I was so reliable that my boss kept adding just one more thing to my plate. My coworkers learned that if they were overwhelmed, they could slide their problems to me like my brother slid that restaurant check. "Rachel, you're so good with clients. Can you join this call?" "Rachel, can you just tweak this presentation?" "Rachel, you're the only one I trust to handle this." I was logging in at 7 a.m. and logging out at 8 p.m., my eyes burning, my back screaming, my head buzzing. But every time someone said, "Thank you, I don't know what we'd do without you," I felt a tiny hit of validation. I mattered. I was useful. I was holding everything together. What I didn't see was that no one was holding me, until the system I'd built on guilt, fear, and obligation finally collapsed. The collapse didn't look like a movie scene. There was no dramatic car crash, no screaming fight in the rain. It was quieter than that, but in some ways, it hurt more. It started with my annual performance review. I walked into my boss's office with a folder full of accomplishments: 3 projects delivered early, 2 client save situations, a training manual I'd written on my own time. I was tired, but I was proud. Mark smiled across the desk. "Rachel, you've had an incredible year," he said. "Clients love you. The team relies on you." Then his tone shifted. "But as you know, the company's in a belt-tightening phase. There won't be raises this quarter. We'll revisit in 6 months." The room tilted. 6 months. I had given them my evenings, my weekends, my emotional energy. I had eaten lunch at my desk for months. I had gone above and beyond so consistently that above and beyond became expected. And in return, I got a pat on the back and a promise to revisit. I walked out of his office with a polite smile and a knot in my stomach that didn't go away for weeks. Then came my mom's birthday. She was turning 60. Lindsay wanted to make it special. "We only turned 60 once," she said on the family group chat. "We should do a big dinner, balloons and cake and everything. Rach, can you book something nice?" There was no discussion of who would pay. It was understood. I made the reservation. I ordered the cake. I bought a new dress on clearance because all my old ones felt too office. At the restaurant, Mom was glowing. Everyone was laughing. I tried to push down the little resentful voice in my head that kept calculating costs. Halfway through dinner, Lindsay clinked her glass with a fork. "I just want to say something," she said, her mascara already smudging. "Mom, we love you so much. You've sacrificed everything for us. And there's someone else here who sacrifices a lot too." She turned to look at me. Oh, okay. Maybe this would be the moment they'd acknowledge it, the moment they'd say thank you. "Rachel," Lindsay said, "you're always so generous. You always come through. So, we thought it'd be perfect if you covered Mom's birthday dinner this year. You just got your bonus, right?" The whole table turned toward me, smiling like this was some adorable inside joke. The kids clapped. My aunt nodded approvingly. Mom laughed and put a hand on her chest like she was so touched. Tyler chimed in. "Yeah, big girl job, big girl bonus." They our laughed. I swallowed hard. That's when the server put the check on the table, and Tyler slid it across to me without even opening it. "Here you go, Rich." And that's when my hand froze over my wallet. Because what no one at that table knew was that my big girl bonus was already gone, sucked up by the truck payments Tyler had missed and the mortgage payment I'd made for Mom, and a surprise medical bill I'd covered for Lindsay's youngest when her ex didn't answer his phone. What no one knew was that my checking account was down to $184. What no one knew was that I'd put my emergency fund on a credit card and my therapist on a payment plan. And they were all looking at me like I was a winning lottery ticket that belonged to them. I felt something inside me go cold. I looked around the table and, for the first time, really saw what was happening. Mom, smiling but not even pretending to reach for her own purse. Lindsay, watching me with tearful, expectant eyes, and 2 kids she assumed I could always help feed. Tyler, already half turned back to his phone, assuming I would say yes. My aunt and uncle, nodding approvingly, as if this was proof of what a good daughter I was. Not one person said, "We'll split it." Not one person said, "Are you okay financially?" Not one person even hesitated before deciding my money belonged to them. The server stood there awkwardly, pen poised. I forced a smile so hard my jaw hurt. "Yeah," I heard myself say. "I'll take it." I handed over my card. I watched the numbers in my checking account disappear in my head. But I also quietly made another decision. This was the last time. I didn't know exactly what would come next. I just knew that if I didn't change something, I was going to end up like my mom at that kitchen table, terrified, ashamed, begging a teenage version of myself for help. The next day, my body made a decision before my brain did. I was at work, midway through a client call, when my heart started pounding so hard I couldn't hear. My vision tunneled. My hands went numb on the keyboard. I felt like I was falling, even though I was sitting in a chair. I yanked off my headset and stumbled to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall, sliding down the wall. I thought I was having a heart attack. I wasn't. It was a panic attack. The urgent care doctor asked me about caffeine and sleep and stress. I laughed, actually laughed, because I didn't know which one to start with. He handed me a pamphlet about anxiety and told me to follow up with my primary care doctor, maybe a therapist. On the drive home, my phone buzzed non-stop. Emails, Slack notifications, a text from Lindsay asking if I could watch the kids on Saturday. I threw my phone into the passenger seat and screamed. Out loud, full volume, throat-burning, steering wheel pounding scream. In that raw, ugly sound, I heard the truth. I was not okay, and no one was coming to save me. If I wanted a different life, I was going to have to save myself. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and a cheap glass of red wine, and I asked myself a question I'd never really let myself consider. What if I just stopped? Stopped being the emergency contact for every adult in my family. Stopped taking on extra projects at work out of guilt. Stopped acting like everyone else's survival was more important than my sanity. What would actually happen if I said no? I made 3 columns on the page. What I'm doing for my family, what I'm doing for my job, what I'm doing for myself. The first 2 columns were full in minutes. Bills I'd paid, loans I'd co-signed, furniture I'd bought, weekends I'd spent helping, projects I'd taken on, nights I'd stayed late. The third column, what I'm doing for myself, stayed mostly blank. I sat there for a long time, staring at that empty column. I realized I didn't even know what to put in it. I go to therapy once a month, I wrote finally. Then, under that, I get my nails done sometimes. That was it. 2 small little lines in a sea of obligations. My therapist, Dr. Patel, had been trying for months to get me to see it. "You were parentified," she'd say gently. "You grew up feeling like your worth was tied to how useful you were. It makes sense that you keep replaying that pattern as an adult." I'd nodded along like I got it, but seeing it in my own handwriting hit different. I wasn't being nice. I wasn't being a good daughter. I was sacrificing myself on an altar no one had even asked me to build. They just happily used. So I made another 3 columns. Non-negotiable responsibilities: my rent, my utilities, my food, my health. Optional generosity: things I will no longer do. And for the first time in my life, I let myself put some things in that last column. I will no longer co-sign loans for anyone, pay other people's recurring bills, be default childcare without notice, take calls after 10 p.m. unless it's a real emergency, cancel my own plans because someone didn't plan ahead. My heart pounded as I wrote each one. It felt wrong, selfish, mean, but it also felt like oxygen. I decided on 3 big moves. Get my finances untangled from my family. No more joint accounts. No more co-signing. No more mysterious auto payments. Set boundaries with my family in actual words, not hints, not passive-aggressive jokes, out loud sentences. Fix my work life. If they weren't going to pay me fairly for doing the job of 3 people, I needed to either change my role or leave. It all sounded very brave on paper. In real life, it was terrifying. But the panic attack had done something important. It convinced me that doing nothing was no longer an option. Fear either keeps you trapped, Dr. Patel had said once, or it becomes the fuel that gets you out. I was still terrified, but for the first time, I was more afraid of staying the same than of changing. So I took a deep breath, opened a fresh page in my notebook, and wrote at the top in big, shaky letters, Plan. Step 1 of my plan was the least dramatic and the most powerful. Information. I logged into every account with my name on it, joint accounts with my mom, the loan I'd co-signed for Tyler, auto payments I'd set up, just temporarily, for Lindsay. It was like pulling weeds and discovering an entire root system under the soil. My name was on everything. Mom's internet bill? Set up with my card just for a month when she lost her wallet. Still there 2 years later. Lindsay's car insurance? On my card because she couldn't get approved. Tyler's truck loan? Past due by 3 months. I made a spreadsheet. It was the most depressing spreadsheet I've ever made in my life. Then I started making calls. To the bank. I want to remove my card from this auto payment. To the loan company. What are my options to get my name off this note if the primary borrower isn't paying? To my own bank again. I'd like to open a new checking account, only in my name, and have my direct deposit rerouted. It felt sneaky, like I was doing something wrong. But I wasn't stealing. I wasn't lying. I was just quietly taking my life back. The harder part was step 2, actually talking to my family. I picked a Sunday afternoon when everyone was usually home and slightly less chaotic. I sent a group text. Hey, I want to talk about some stuff. Can we do a family call at 3? Lindsay replied with a thumbs up. Tyler sent, sure. My mom wrote, everything okay? No, I thought, but I typed, yeah, just want to check in. At 3 p.m., my phone lit up with the family group video call. Faces popped up, Mom on the couch, Lindsay in her kitchen, Tyler in his truck. I took a deep breath. Okay, I said. I'm just going to say this. I'm not doing this anymore. They all stared at me. Doing what? Mom asked, her brow furrowing. Being the safety net for everyone, I said. My voice shook, but I kept going. I love you. I want you all to be okay. But I cannot keep paying for everything and fixing everything. It's killing me. Silence. Lindsay laughed nervously. Is this about dinner? Because I told you I'd get next time. It's not about just dinner, I said. It's about the mortgage and the truck and the daycare and the bills. It's about the way my card is on half the stuff you guys use every month. I had a panic attack last week. I am not okay, and something has to change." Mom's eyes filled with tears instantly. "Baby, we never asked you to do all that," she said. "Yes," I said gently. "You did. Maybe not in those words, but you did. And I said yes. That's on me. I'm not blaming you for everything, but I am telling you it's over. I'm taking my card off all the auto payments. I'm not co-signing anything else. I'm not paying the mortgage again. I will help sometimes if I can, but not automatically, not at the expense of my life." Tyler's jaw tensed. "So what? You're just going to leave us hanging?" "I'm not leaving anyone hanging," I said. "I'm giving you time to adjust. I'll cover this month's bills that are already set up. After that, you have to plan for your own expenses, just like I had to." Lindsay's voice went high and sharp. "You know I don't make what you make, Rachel. You know I have 2 kids. You have no idea what that's like." "I know," I said softly. "And I'm sorry you're in that situation. Truly. But me bankrupting myself isn't actually helping you. It's just delaying the moment you have to figure out a sustainable plan." Mom wiped her eyes. "So, all these years, you've just been keeping score?" she whispered. "Waiting to throw it in our faces?" That hurt more than anything. "No," I said quietly. "I've been keeping bills, Mom, not score. There's a difference, and they're all in my name." Tyler shook his head. "This is messed up," he muttered. "You get your fancy job and suddenly you're better than us." There it was. The thing I'd been afraid they secretly believed all along. "I'm not better than anyone," I said. "I'm just done being worse to myself than I am to everyone else." The call spiraled for a while. Accusations, tears, guilting. "Family helps family," Mom kept saying. "So now you're going to abandon us?" "You know I never got ahead because I had you young. You know Tyler has ADHD. You know Lindsay's ex is useless." Every sentence started with "you know," like my knowledge was a weapon being used against me. Finally, I said, "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just stepping off the cliff I've been hanging from for 10 years. You all have 2 legs. You can stand on solid ground if you choose to. But I'm not your harness anymore." And then I did something that scared me as much as signing that truck loan. I ended the call. "I'm going to get off now," I said, voice calm but shaking. "I love you, but this is happening." I clicked end. Then I turned off my phone, sat on my couch, and shook so hard my teeth chattered. The texts started within minutes once I turned my phone back on. Lindsay, "I can't believe you do this to us." Tyler, "Wow, guess money changes people." Mom, "We'll talk when you've calmed down." But I didn't change my mind. Step 3 of the plan was my job. I dusted off my resume. I reached out to old coworkers. I applied for roles that paid what my skills were actually worth. I also scheduled a meeting with Mark. "I'm at capacity," I said, sitting across from him, hands folded to hide the shaking. "I've been taking on extra work because I care, but it's not sustainable. I need either a promotion and raise that reflect my responsibilities, or I need my workload to match my title. And I'll be honest, I am exploring other opportunities." He looked surprised. "I had no idea you felt this way," he said. Of course he didn't. I'd been smiling and nodding and saying, "No problem. for years. "It's not your job to read my mind," I said. "I should have spoken up sooner. I'm doing that now." He asked for time to think. I quietly kept applying. For the first time in my adult life, I was building a life that wasn't designed entirely around other people's needs. It was messy. It was scary. But it was mine. I wish I could say that after one brave phone call, everything magically got better. It didn't. In the weeks after I pulled my card off the bills, there was a lot of chaos. Late-night calls, guilty texts, silent treatment. The first time Mom's internet got shut off, she called me in tears. "They turned it off, Rachel. I can't watch my shows. I can't check my email. I told them my daughter usually pays it, but—" "I'm sorry that happened," I said, my throat tight. "Did you ask them about a payment plan? Or a cheaper package?" "You're really not going to fix this?" she whispered, like she didn't recognize me. I was shaking while I answered. "I can't," I said. "I told you. I'm paying my own bills. I can help you call them if you want, and we can figure out a cheaper option together. But I can't just pay it." She hung up on me. I cried for an hour, but 3 days later she texted, "Got on a cheaper plan. It's fine." It wasn't the end of the world. The truck loan, though, that was a harder hit. The bank called me one last time. "Ms. Miller, the vehicle is scheduled for repossession. If you make a payment today, we can delay it." My stomach dropped. I'd never let anything with my name on it get to that point before. "Do I have any options to remove myself from the loan?" I asked. "Only if the primary borrower refinances without you," the rep said. I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, that's not happening." I didn't make the payment. A week later, Tyler called me, voice furious. "They took my truck!" he shouted. "They came to my job and took it right from the lot. You couldn't spot one last payment after everything?" My hands were sweating, but my voice was steady. "I told you months ago I wasn't paying that note anymore," I said. "You told me you had it under control." "You ruined my life," he spat. "No," I said quietly. "I co-signed a loan I never should have touched. I paid on it for over a year while you missed payments. At some point, the consequences have to be yours." He didn't talk to me for 6 months after that. Lindsay fared differently. Without my money floating her every crisis, she had to start budgeting. She started picking up extra shifts, selling stuff she didn't need, and, this shocked me, actually went after her ex for child support. "It's what you've been telling me to do for years," she admitted in a rare moment of honesty. "I just didn't want the fight. But once you stopped bailing me out, I didn't have a choice." At work, karma showed up in a different way. Mark came back to me 2 weeks after our conversation. "We can offer you a 5% raise," he said, "and we'll assign one of your projects to another PM." It was something, but not enough. I had an offer from another company by then, a remote role, 20% higher salary, and a manager who, during the interview, had said, "We're careful about workload. We don't want to burn out our best people." I turned in my notice. When I told my coworkers, they were shocked. "You can't leave," one of them gasped. "You're the glue here." "Then maybe it's time you all learn how to hold your own pieces together," I said. I didn't say it to be mean. I said it because it was true. When I started my new job, something wild happened. People actually respected my boundaries. If I logged off at 5:30, no one sent passive-aggressive emails. If I said, "My plate is full," my manager said, "Okay, we'll adjust." I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. It didn't. Meanwhile, my family's life got harder for a while. Mom had to sell some jewelry she'd been saving for the grandkids to pay off a credit card. She downsized her cable. She started buying store brands. Tyler moved into a smaller apartment with roommates. He took a steady job at a warehouse instead of chasing opportunities that never panned out. Lindsay learned to say no when Mom wanted to come over and watch the kids at weird hours, because she actually needed sleep to function at work. In other words, they started doing what I'd been doing all along. They survived. And I started to live. My panic attacks stopped. My blood pressure dropped. My apartment started to feel like a home instead of a crash pad between crises. The sweetest karma wasn't watching them struggle. It was watching them adapt without me. It proved the thing I'd been too scared to really believe. They never actually needed me as much as they made it seem. They just needed me to keep volunteering more than was healthy. Once I stepped back, life went on. Messier, more uncomfortable, less cushioned, but real. 2 years after that birthday dinner, I celebrated my 36th with a small group of friends at a taco place by the bayou. There were no speeches about my bonus, no checks silently pushed toward me. When the bill came, we split it evenly. I almost cried at how normal it felt. My life doesn't look Instagram perfect. I still live in a modest apartment. I still drive the same car. I still have student loans. But I also have a job that pays me fairly and respects my time. A savings account that goes up more often than it goes down. Weekends that belong to me. A therapist who's helping me learn what I actually like, not just what I'm useful for. Things with my family are complicated. Tyler and I talk occasionally, mostly when he wants to brag about something he did on his own. "I paid off my credit card," he told me the other day, "all by myself." "I'm proud of you," I said, and I meant it. Lindsay still asks for help sometimes. But now, when she calls and says, "Rach, can you spot me $200 until Friday?" I pause. I check my own budget. I check in with my own energy. Sometimes I say, "Yeah, I can do $50. Sometimes I say, "I can watch the kids Saturday so you can pick up an extra shift, but I can't send money." Sometimes I say, simply, "I can't this time." And the world doesn't end. My mom took longer to come around. For months, every conversation was laced with guilt. "You know I didn't have anyone to help me when I was your age," she'd say. "I know," I'd answer, "and I'm sorry for that. But that doesn't mean I have to live the same way." One day, she called me out of the blue. "I got a part-time job at the library," she said. I blinked. "At 60?" I asked. "I like books," she said. "And it's quiet. And they have good benefits." We laughed. That was the first time in a long time we'd laughed together without money being somewhere in the conversation. We're not a Hallmark card family now. We're a work-in-progress family. I have boundaries. They have feelings about them. We're all learning that both can exist at the same time. If you're still listening to this, maybe you're watching from your couch after another 60-hour week, scrolling on your phone while you wait for your DoorDash order you barely had the energy to place. Maybe you're the one your family calls when the car breaks down, when the rent is due, when someone needs to watch the kids, when the group chat goes silent and then, suddenly, everyone remembers your number as soon as there's a crisis. Maybe you've been taught your whole life that your goodness is measured by how much of yourself you're willing to give away. Here's what I want you to hear from someone who has lived that way and almost broke because of it. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to step out of the safety net role. You are allowed to say, I love you, but I can't do that. You are allowed to disappoint people who are used to you over-delivering. That doesn't make you cold. That doesn't make you selfish. That makes you a human being, not an infrastructure. Yes, some people will be angry. Some will call you ungrateful or changed or selfish. What they mean is, you're no longer willing to hurt yourself to keep me comfortable. That's not selfish. That's self-respect. And sometimes, when the dust settles, the same people who were furious at your boundaries will secretly start building their own because you showed them it was possible. If your family has ever made you feel like their retirement plan, their backup parent, their 24/7 crisis line, hear this. You don't owe anyone your burnout. You owe yourself a life where you wake up and your first thought isn't, who needs me, but what do I need today? My name is Rachel. I used to think my entire value came from how many fires I could put out for everyone else. Now, my life is quieter. Smaller, maybe, on paper. But when I sit in my little apartment, coffee in hand, sunlight coming through the blinds, and my phone blessedly silent for a few minutes, I feel something I hadn't felt in years. Not guilt, not dread. Peace. And that, more than any paycheck or thank you text, is the real reward for finally choosing myself.